Hey, everybody, this is Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and this is the Duluth Pack podcast, Leader of the Pack. And we have a true leader in his field today, and we're going to learn all about him. We've all heard about Dude Dad, and I could not be more excited with our special guest today, Taylor Calmus. Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom. It's great to be here in my house, and you're in your house, and we're
Wow,
having
this I feel like this is my house because I spend so much time here, but this would actually be my office.
sure. Well, this is my office.
You're
My
just
office happens to be
you
in my house.
you lucky guy, you. So we want to find out what a leader in your field, what it takes to become that. And we found out over the years that Taylor, a lot of people, we want to dive back all the way into your childhood to just see what makes you tick and be the way you are to have an awesome career like you have. So let's go all the way back and tell our listeners,
Okay.
where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? Where did you go to grade school and middle school and high school and all
Sure.
those good things?
So, I mean, I have sort of a unique experience that I think will resonate with your listeners, but for the most of the country didn't grow up the way I grew up. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in rural South Dakota. And when I say like rural, I mean like a town of 800 people. I lived near that town, right? Like my graduating class was 38 kids, right? I think we took our senior photo on a tractor. Like that was that, just extremely rural, and then so I kind of grew up like with my brother, and we had some neighbors across the street, but for the most part it was just me and my brother coming up with whatever we could do to entertain ourselves, because like there's no movie theaters, there's no arcades, so we're just kind of out there on the farm, finding things to do. um
Question: did you know all your graduating class of 38?
Oh yeah, I mean, I spent like 18 years with them. Aside from a couple that moved in late or whatever, but uh, and actually, it would have been a graduating class of 39, but Danny Woods didn't make it. Sorry, Danny. Uh, I think he eventually got his degree, but yeah, so close to 40.
Isn't that crazy? What a small. Now, was that on a farm in rural South Dakota?
I lived on an acreage. My parents still live there. My dad sells construction equipment. And my mom is just this unique human who does whatever comes to her head. And I think a lot of who I am today is comes from my mom's like just go get 'em attitude. Like she's the type of person that, will never say, I can't do that. She's always just like, oh, how to, I'd like to try that, So like her and I have this like ongoing game where we add up how many jobs each of us have worked over the years to see who's had the most amount of random jobs. And we're both over 20, but I think I passed her by one or two, but now I won't get another job again, hopefully. So now my race is kind of over. But yeah, so she's just done, anything and everything under the sun. And I think I took a lot of that from her.
Super creative, then you got from your mom? Because obviously, to do what you do for a living, you've got to be very creative, be able to think on your feet.
Yeah.
Did you get those genes from her?
Yeah, she's an ideas woman, right? Like my mom always has the ideas, and then she makes my dad carry them out. So she'd be like, I think we should build blank. And then he'll be like, all right, I'll figure it out. And then together, the two of them will figure out how to, build a garden shed or, whatever it is.
What's the craziest one they ever came up with?
Oh man, I don't know. They have this old farmhouse and they've added on to it and they've redone every square inch of it. And um gosh, what's the craziest thing they've ever done? I mean, she opened a coffee shop in that small town of 800 people, and like renovated this building to be beautiful to the point where like when you walk inside of it, you're like, where am I? This is not Howard, South Dakota. But it ended up being like too nice because then like the old farmers in their dirty boots wouldn't come in because they were like, I'm too dirty to go in there. Right. It's such a weird like small towns, small towns have a lot going on. But
Yeah, oh man, but they have a lot going for them too. If you think about, well, let's go into some of that because you go to college. Did you always know that you wanted to be in the arts?
yeah, I think so. I was always kind of, into entertainment and stuff. And like I got my first video camera when I was like 9 and started making BMX videos with my brother. And also we started this our own like sketch comedy videos that we called Bad TV, sort of a spinoff of Mad TV. Just these dumb sketches. Man, I still have some of them on a hard drive somewhere, but like we did like Clint Eastwood in Hang 'em Low, which was like a Hang 'em High spoof, but it was like I like hung one of my friends, but he had to hold his feet up because he was so close to the ground. It's so stupid. But that's what us 9-year-olds came up with. So yeah, I mean, I always kind of had that like that drive that I wanted to do something like that. But like growing up in rural area, like that's not really like a thing that's like possible. But when I went to college, I went to University of Sioux Falls because I heard that they had this program that I could take where I could spend a semester in Hollywood learning about the film industry. So I kind of went to USF so that I could get into that one semester program. And that sort of like opened up a lot of doors for me because being out there, you're just surrounded by all these dreamers and all these people with crazy ideas that are just going for it. And um it's not abnormal to just follow your dreams when you're there because everyone's doing it. So it sort of gives you permission to be like, you know what? I'm gonna work odd jobs. I'm gonna do whatever I can so I can pursue this crazy dream. Right. Like if I try to do that, back home, I think everyone would, they might enjoy it. They'd also think like, you need to maybe just get a real job or whatever, until you pulled it off and you made it successful, then they'd all be like, holy crap, look at that.
Hey, Taylor, I knew you had it in you.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, that might have changed now just by the way, short form content has blown up and anybody can sort of be a creator now. But if we're talking 15 years ago, I think that would probably be a different story.
So you go do a semester in LA.
Yeah.
You go back to Sioux Falls. At
Mm-hmm.
that point, did you make your decision that, yep, I'm going back there when I'm done and I get my sheepskin? And did you do it right away?
Yeah, as soon as I graduated college, because I basically did the program as a junior, and then I went back, finished my 1 year, and then I took the summer to hang out. And then I packed up everything I could into my two-door red Honda Civic. Um, and anything I couldn't fit in that, I either sold or took to my parents' house and I moved out there with literally like almost nothing. Because he like not only was I in a red two-door Honda Civic, I had my girlfriend, now wife, with me and one of my friends in the back seat. So there's three of us crammed into this, clown car with all my belongings. Yeah, and I made the trek out to the dirty West Coast city.
So you moved to LA. Obviously you're a young kid, has to be just culture shock. You come from a
Yeah,
small rural town to LA. I've been there a bunch of times and holy cow, it's a
yeah,
different world. Tell us your
totally,
experience.
totally a fish out of water. But I think that's what like gives me like I'm really proud of that sort of experience because like I can sort of see the world from two very opposite ends of the world, right? Like the people that I know from where I grew up don't understand the people that I know from Los Angeles and vice versa, because they just live in completely different worlds. And I can kind of see that and go like, okay, I get it. I understand why you two don't like each other or don't agree on things or whatever, but I sort of understand why both of you are the way you are, you know? And so I'm really like, proud of that perspective that I was given by doing that. But yeah, it was a huge culture shock. But luckily, like I already had a bunch of friends that I met at school there. So like when I got there, I had a place to live with friends I knew and could kind of hit the ground running and just dive in and try to figure it out. Um, yeah.
Taylor, what were you doing the first few months out there? Because obviously now you got to go beat on doors, right?
Yeah, so you try to find a class and start doing improv and just trying to network and meet people, and then to pay the bills. One great thing that young actors can do is do background work. So so I was doing like background work on different movies and TV shows and stuff, and that's just like you're just in the background, blurry, out of focus. I think there's one clip of me on Bones where I was like pretty in focus, and people will like post that up in my comments every once in a while. I'll be like, I think I just saw you on Bones, you know. But that's a great way to kind of like see how the industry works and stuff, while getting paid like $65 a day to do it. So yeah, it was God, it's wild times, man. I I am like appreciate that time of my life, but I'm so glad I'm past it because it was so stinking hard.
So what was a typical day like? Because if you were just in a blurred background of a show when that show's filmed, do you stay on for like, okay, then we're going to keep you blurred in the background for other shows or episodes, or
Yeah.
is it, oh, hey, you know what, thank you for the day, here's your $65, and down the street you have to go beat on another door?
Yeah, they kind of place you around here and there, and basically you get hooked up with like an agency that and then you just tell them what days you're available, and then they'll try to get you booked, and then you go out and you just show up wherever you're told to show up, and then there'll be a guy that tells you what to do. It's like it might be an audience scene where you're like, oh, we're filming a hockey game that's happening. There's going to be this scene, and we need people, you need extras in the stand. So then you're just up there, and they'll be like, all right, cheer, but don't make any noise. You're like, ah, or it could be like you're at a funeral and they're like, so look somber, and so you're also like trying to like prove yourself as an actor and just hoping that the director is gonna be like, look at that guy back there, he's good, have him come up here and say something. That doesn't happen really, but yeah. So I mean, that was just part. I mean, everyone that's moved out there to do that has done that a few times. But eventually, you try to get away from that so that you have more time to audition so that you can actually get one of those speaking roles.
So how does this whole audition thing work? So I heard you say agency or an agent.
Yeah.
And so they get you auditions and say, hey, Taylor, be here on this day, and you're going to be reading a script for a movie doing this or a show
Yeah.
doing this.
So you'll get, if you get an agent, or there's also like places you can submit yourself for it, right? But your agent will usually get you an audition and the day before the audition is. So you'll get the audition on, you'll find out that you have an audition Thursday on Wednesday. And then they'll send you the sides. The sides are like the little piece of the script that they want you to read in the audition. So you'll spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure out like, how you're going to approach it or whatever, what the scene's really asking for, who the character is and everything. And then you'll go sit in a room. And mind you, too, for each of these roles that goes out, there's several thousand people that submit for that role. And then from those several thousand, the casting director might call in, if it's for a commercial, quite a few, might be like 100 people for that one role. So if you just get the audition, that's already a huge win, right? But and then from there, you'll go in, you'll read, and if you do good, they'll give you a callback, which means they want to see you again, and they'll narrow it down to, I don't know, 10, 20, something like that. I don't know how many. It just kind of depends on the project. And then from there, if they still really like you, they'll put you on a veil. On a veil means these are the shoot dates. We need you to stay available because we might book you for this, right? And they might leave you on a veil for a couple of days and then they'll tell you you booked it, or they'll release you from a veil, which means you didn't get nothing, kid. So you could go through that whole process and then not get anything. So that was like the last year that I was really pursuing acting hard. I was on a veil 6 times and I didn't get any of them. And that is the most disheartening thing ever, because you know you're so close. You know you're doing good because you don't get put on a veil unless you're really doing it right, you know? But for whatever reason, they went the other direction. And I think at the time, that was like I had like 2 kids by then. And I think both of my kids had also gotten on the veil at least once that year, because we were like auditioning the kids and stuff too. My son Theo actually booked a Southwest Airlines commercial, right? And it was like this, it was like a national spot and everything, which a national spot's a big deal because if it has residuals, then you get paid every time it plays. So, one job might be your entire income for the year. You might make 60 grand off of that one commercial, right? So he books this Southwest commercial, and it's like this age progression thing where they've like basically cast his character in like, as a baby, and then as a toddler and a kid and then an adult or whatever, right? So we show up on set that day and he's the lead. He's the main baby that they booked, but then they booked a backup baby as well. And then like we see all the other kids have dark brown hair. And Theo has just thumb blonde hair. And then the backup baby, dark brown hair, dark eyes. And I was like, oh man, there's no way they're going to use him. Look, like they were talking about coloring his hair. And I'm like, why would they color his hair when they could just use that kid? So we sat there on set all day and then they released us. They never shot with him, but he still got paid for the day, but no, no residuals because he's not in the spot.
Well, maybe it's a good thing that he actually didn't get the spot before Dad got a spot, because some
Yeah.
competition in the household there, right?
Yeah, well, I got plenty of spots, just not that last year. But by then, like I had started, my channel Dude Dad, and it was starting to take off. And kind of I was starting to like get some brand deals through that and stuff. So then, it sort of hit a certain point where, I could run across town to go on this audition and maybe get some work, or I could just stay home and do the work that's right in front of me, you know?
So let me ask you a question. You talked about earlier improv. You're talking about stand up, right?
Yep. No, those are two
No?
different things.
Okay.
So
So
improv comedy is it's sort of like a lot of the people on SNL got their start in improv comedy, but improv comedy is it's just what it is. It's improv. There's no script, there's nothing written in advance. You go out on stage with your team and you get a suggestion from the audience, and then you create a show based off of that suggestion just by working with the other actors, and like, but it's a really good skill to learn. And like they do a good job of making fun of it on The Office, of like Michael Scott doing improv classes. And Michael Scott is like the worst improv partner ever, because like for improv, like what they teach you is to give your scene partner gifts all the time, right? So like if you and I are in a scene together, instead of walking in and going, hey, right, because that doesn't help you at all, right? Like instead I come in and be like, Fire Marshal Dan, so glad you're here, the cat's up there. Now you know that you're the fire marshal, your name is Dan, and there's a cat. So now you have all that to work with, and you can go like, oh crap, I just brought the water, I don't have the ladder at all, or whatever. And now we've got something to go off of, right? Where like Michael Scott will walk in and he'll say, hey, Fire Marshal Dan, the cat's up there. And he'll say, I'm not the fire marshal. I'm a secret agent, or whatever. Like, and that's denying what the person just gave you. So, but when you learn those skills, it's, I mean, it's just a huge help in script writing, but also just in acting, because what it teaches you to do more than anything is to listen, right? Because acting is all about just like listening and reacting to what you just heard, right? So you're not in your head about what your line is. You're listening to what your scene partner is saying. You hear them say that, then you're reacting off of what they said with your line, you know?
Wow, in the creativity that has to be going into that, in the how fast you have to do it, that's absolutely incredible. So
Yeah.
you just alluded to, Taylor, Dude Dad. Where did the idea for Dude Dad come from? This is sweet.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it came from like being out there and like around a lot of creative people and like having a ton of fun with it and knowing that like it's what I want to do. But then like we got pregnant and I was like, man, I'm making a little bit of money, but it's not enough to like take care of a family or keep them secure. And so I kind of had this like feeling like this might, like I might have to let go of this dream, but I still want to keep doing it. So I'm just going to start up this channel called Dude Dad and start making my own videos and sketches about that. So I have a creative outlet to, even if we have to like leave LA, leave Hollywood, if I have to move back to the Midwest and get a quote unquote real job, at least I'll have this to sort of like, you know, entertain myself and feed that creative passion or whatever, right? And I think honestly, I think that's the biggest part of it that made it successful, is that it didn't come from a place of like I want this to be my job. It was like I just want to do this because I really love doing this. And then to tie fatherhood into it, I think, allowed me to like, use that creativity in this new endeavor that was going to take over my life.
But the idea of it originally, I mean, one day it just pops in your head that I can do this, I guess, vlog that's Dude
Yeah.
Dad. And well, answer that, because then I have oh man, I just have so many questions about it. It's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, at the time I sort of saw there was a lot of like women doing like mom blogs. There's a lot of mom content. And this was 2015, is when I was starting to like think about this whole thing. And I was like, man, there's a lot of people kind of killing this like mom game. And I was about to become a dad. I'm like, there's really no dad content out there. Like, what if I like start making dad content, right? So that's what I did. And pretty quickly, I could see that that was working and that there was a market for that and that people wanted to see that. And honestly, it was a lot of women. My audience has primarily leaned female from the very beginning, because the women are the ones that are most invested in the child rearing a lot of the times, or they're just the ones that are on social more, you know. So a lot of times, like when I meet guys at Home Depot or whatever, they'll be like, hey, my wife loves you, it's, they always say it like that. It's the funniest thing ever. But yeah, so I just kind of started making dad content, and then like there was like this big wave of the entire culture really being focused on fatherhood. Like maybe 1 or 2 years after I did that, you saw this like conversation happening around like invested fatherhood relationships and dads being more involved and this and that. And I was already sort of started, in my channel, that like it was like almost like this wave, where like I just was on my surfboard and this wave came in and just helped and gave me momentum from what I was already started.
When you first started this, Taylor, and listeners, this is Taylor Calmus, Dude Dad, which we all know who Dude Dad is. When you first started doing this, was it more of a serious, or was it always meant to be comedy?
Kind of both. And I think I still do that. We do more comedy now. And honestly, when I first started, it was a lot more of me talking to the camera about my experience as a dad. And then it sort of evolved over the years for a couple of reasons, and reasons that like most people don't like understand because they just don't hear me talk about it. But because every once in a while I'll hear somebody, in the comments be like, I miss when you used to, like do more stuff about fatherhood and your experiences and less just comedy based things with your wife or whatever. But the reality of that is like my kids are older now. Like when they were like, 3 and under, it was really easy to just put them into content, make content about them, and everything be totally fine with that, right? Well, now they're older, they're their own people, they have their own personalities. They don't, I don't want every moment I'm with them for them to think that I'm working or that I'm trying to get something out of them, you know? So it's funny because some people might look at the content and be like, oh, he's not as an invested father as he used to be. But the reality is I'm trying to be a more invested father, and in order to do that, I need to show less of my kids in our content, you know, because we still do some stuff with them, and we're always like kind of upfront about what we need to get done and stuff, but we always try to keep it very tight and concise. Um, but that's been a hard thing because like I've I don't want to lose that aspect of what the channel is. But the reality is, I think it's the better choice for my family. But also, the comedy sketches get so many more views usually, So it's like, well, you know, there's something to be said too about like going where the audience is.
They're the customer, at the end
Exactly.
of the day.
Yeah.
Taylor, you talk about this wave that hit you now. At that point, were you still, or at that point, were you thinking, hey, wait, this could be a career? Or were you still in the mindset early on before the wave hit you of, all right, I want to keep doing this and keep my creative genes going, but I'm going to have to go get a real job, as you put it?
I was always trying to hustle it, like because whatever money I could make there, it was less time I had to spend working construction, building sets. Because at that time built a friend of mine from church built sets for TV and commercials and stuff. And I have a background in carpentry, so I was like, hey, I'll help you out or whatever. And that was good money, but it was also like 12 hours a day, so it takes out your whole day. Um, but yeah, so I started like getting little brand deals here and there, and then like I got connected with this like larger page that was way ahead of me, called Life of Dad, and they had really built something cool, but they didn't have any experience making videos, and like the whole platform, Facebook specifically, kind of started shifting towards being a video platform, and they couldn't do that well, so they would bring me in to like make brand deals and stuff for them, and I would get a little piece of that money, so that was a way for me to like sort of start building up my brand through another brand. um but then eventually, like now, they've still got things going, but we've sort of surpassed them on every level, which has just been kind of wild because and when I first got started, it was like, man, they're the mothership. Could you imagine if we got to work with them? And then we did, and it was like, now you know it's like role reversals.
Absolutely. So when you first started making money off this, then do you have to go and seek out sponsorship? Or at that point, is it's like, hey, I'm growing, and so now they're starting to come to me?
Yeah, a little of both. We would get reached out to every once in a while. We'd also reach out to people. That was back when I was still trying to do it on my own. And so I would get some stuff, but eventually I got hooked up with a guy that was also working with Miles and Charlie. And I think Charlie met him first. And he's just changed everything for us because he's so well connected, and he knows how to have those conversations with those brands and how to pitch and sell, and like So through him, we've just made so many relationships with so many really awesome brands, to the point where we can be more choosy about which brands fit our brand. And, because like now that like it's not just me, it's like there's six of us on my team, and two of them are my best friends, and so like it's gotten a lot more complicated in that regard of like it's no longer a passion project because I have to not only support my family, but I need to support five other families. So that's is a lot more pressure, but it also like comes down to, like, okay, so when we get these brand deals, we need to make sure that the brand deal fits well so that our audience, so our audience will like it, right? And so that we can speak truthfully about it, and that the brand is going to be comfortable letting us kind of do our own thing so that we can talk to our audience the way we normally do. And we're not just like, you know, spitting an ad at them, because at the end of the day, the audience is the most important thing. And if we, lose them, then we don't have anything.
Taylor, if you put out an episode, I'll call it, and oh, this probably happens all the time with so much social media and everything going on today, and somebody doesn't like something you said or something, they just don't resonate with your humor that day. Are your fans pretty vocal to let you know that they didn't like that episode, or are they pretty?
Yeah, that happens once in a while, but for the most part, it doesn't. We really don't get that much negativity in our comments. So when we do, it's always kind of interesting. And it'll either be like somebody that's clearly crazy, or or they just their views don't align with ours in that one little thing and they just can't take a joke or whatever. It happens once in a while. And it's hard sometimes because like I don't like making people feel, I don't like upsetting people. Like that's never been the goal of the channel. Like we've always talked about like the channel is to um it should always remain positive. Like there's enough negative stuff on the internet that makes people angry. We just want to be a happy little slice on the internet that people can come to and just feel, seen, right? Like we want to make the world a little bit smaller by bringing people together and being like, hey, my wife is also buys too many water bottles, whatever. Like it's silly stuff, but at the same time, I think it connects people in a unique way and makes them sort of feel a little bit less alone.
That's awesome. Taylor, you got into building stuff and do it yourself projects. What was the mothership of that, and what really propelled you forward in doing some of those scenes?
Yeah. So the build kind of came about like I've always kind of been handy, I guess. And I like in high school, I didn't play sports. I worked carpentry, building framing houses with a local carpenter, who taught me a lot of stuff, but at the time it was just a job and I wasn't really that interested in it. But then as like I grew older, I got more interested in making stuff and building stuff, um and then just kind of working with my hands. And then the first video I ever made where I kind of utilized some of those skills was I made a Rube Goldberg machine, um, to do like a gender reveal for our second baby, and it went super viral. It just went crazy to the point where it's like, oh, this is a skill set I have that we could utilize. I was like, I never really thought about that. Like there's not a lot of like millennial dads that know how to make things and how to make videos and how to be funny and how to be vulnerable. So it was kind of like this weird thing where like, for so much of my like career in Hollywood, I was told like you got to choose one path. You're either going to be a director or you're going to be an actor, or you're going to be a writer or you're going to be a cinematographer. Like you can't try to do everything because you don't have enough time. You have to focus on one thing and get good at that one thing. And I was never good at focusing on one thing because I'm too, I don't know, I like to get my hands in everything. And when I switched to this other sort of path, it sort of changed everything because it was like, oh, being a jack of all trades is what you kind of need to be to do this. And then like everything that you're like Steve Martin in his book, I read Steve Martin's book, and he has this quote, you'll use everything you've ever known, right? Talking about his comedy and stuff. I'm like, oh, I totally get that because like in this world, you're making content on a daily basis and trying to like come up with new ideas and stuff, so you literally like use every last ounce of anything that you have in you, any little snippet of knowledge you think you have, or a joke or a character or a personality or like whatever, like it all gets used.
So you have to dig pretty deep because you're utilizing all those skills that you've learned over all these years.
Yeah.
Taylor, you've been in a lot of commercials. You've been on Jimmy Kimmel. You're actually in a reoccurring role on Jimmy Kimmel Live and ABC's The Middle. Tell us some about that.
Sure. Yeah, that was back when I was out in LA. I'm not connected with any of that anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, the Jimmy Kimmel stuff was a lot of fun because they just do sketches there, and it was kind of in line with, kind of what I do now. But they move so fast there that they don't have time to cast everything. So I got cast in one thing, and then after that, the phone would just ring whenever they needed a basic white guy. Like I think that was the name of my character in like three or four of the sketches I did with them. It was just like young white guy. um but yeah, so I kind of got in with that group, and then they used me like 10 different times in the course of like 3 years, 3 4 years. And it was always like you get a phone call, you look at it, it'd say Jimmy Kimmel Live, and be like, oh, all right, hello, hey, can you be here in 2 hours? On my way.
Let me check with my agent. Yeah, he
Yeah,
said it's okay.
yeah, exactly.
So you made a decision to leave LA.
Yes, I did.
Why? Why and where are you now?
Three reasons. Kids, kids, and kids. No, I mean, that kind of though, like with at the time we had two kids and the pandemic had just hit. Um, and we were like just I was already kind of dying to get out. And the channel was at a place where it was like, okay, this is the future. We don't need Hollywood anymore. Let's do it. So we bought this house sight unseen in Fort Collins, Colorado, because we had some friends there, and we liked everything about the place, the area. And we just packed up and moved and took a chance on it, and it was one of the best decisions of our lives because if you're trying to raise a family, this is such a better place to do it than in a big city. I think the city was a great place to spend our 20s, but like once you start raising kids and stuff, it just gets really hard. you know just gets really hard living city life with children, and there's not a lot of space, and you're getting stuck in traffic a lot. And like Heidi was commuting to work like an hour each way and dropping our kids off for daycare in like a different part of the city. So it was just kind of a brutal experience. But also, we didn't have enough money to get a house there, so we're just renting. And as we start as the channel was growing, and I was like trying to like build more stuff, like it was just really frustrating to like build something and then immediately have to take it apart because there's no place to put it. Because we also, it's not our house, we couldn't do what we want with it. Actually, when we first got the TV show Super Dad, we were shooting the pilot for that, and we didn't have a house to shoot in because our landlord at the time wouldn't let us shoot there for the TV show because she didn't want the liability or whatever. So we had to like rent. My friends Johnny and Jade owned a house, and we're like, hey, can we rent your house to shoot this and pretend like it's our house? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So like when you watch the TV show, the first episode, we're in this like house that's totally not our house. you know
Pretending that it's your house.
Exactly.
So talk about the cassette tape coffee tables.
Oh, interesting. That's going way back. Uh, yeah, that was just another like thing that paid the bills for a while. But I came up with this idea. Actually, I think I took the idea from another guy that made like a giant Nintendo controller coffee table, and I was like, that's really cool. I should make one like I want to make one like a cassette tape. So I made one like out of plywood, and it was pretty cool. And I showed it to my brother, who's a woodworker, and my brother was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I want to make one." And I was like, "You should make one." So then my brother is like a super particular woodworker, and he made the new version, and it was really freaking nice. So from there, like we sort of started up a business together with me and him and another friend of mine in LA, and I just started selling these things and did like we sold a whole bunch of these like high end cassette tape coffee tables, and then we ended up getting manufacturing to do like a mass manufactured version of it. Um, and that was a nightmare, but like we sold a lot of them. We had this like really successful Kickstarter campaign, but then like the tables were breaking when they were getting delivered and stuff, and it was like, you know, it paid the bills for a while, but man, it was a headache. Um, and we still have that business. We just haven't been like doing much with it right now because we're so busy with our other endeavors. Um, but and I think like because once Dude Dad took off, it was so much more fun and less stressful that I was like, I don't, I don't want to do the coffee tables anymore. It's too much.
Taylor, for our listeners, where can they find you? I mean, social, YouTube, shows, all of this. So, so people can go find you in all different mediums. Where can they find you?
Sure. You can find us just look up Dude Dad at Dude Dad on any social platform. You'll find us. And if you go to dudedad.com, you can pick up some sweet swag or check out our tour dates. See if we're coming to a city near you. I'm doing a stand-up tour, going to a bunch of different cities and stuff. So you can come see us live.
So I want to get into that in a minute, but you had just mentioned Super Dad.
Oh
What's
yeah.
what's the brainchild behind Super Dad, and where is that behemoth gonna go?
So Super Dad started me and a couple of friends, actually a couple of friends from church approached me with this idea of like this TV show, building stuff, for kids or whatever. And then I challenged Chip Gaines to a playhouse building competition for charity. Like I called him out online, made this video that was like tailored to him and like had a bunch of funny jokes that were sort of written about Fixer Upper and stuff in it. And his team saw it and like accepted the challenge, and which was kind of like the craziest thing ever. I still have footage on my phone somewhere of like just losing my mind that day. I was like in the grocery store when I saw the tweet that he tweeted out back to me, and I lost my mind. But from there, like it was kind of a wild story. So like I started working with his team really closely at how to do this whole like playhouse building competition for charity. And it evolved a ton from my original idea. So it ended up, we didn't build anything. Instead, we had a competition to see who could raise the most money, but it wouldn't be just me and Chip. It would be me and Chip and 8 other celebrities, right? So we're talking J Lo. We're talking A Rod, Drew Barrymore, Florida Georgia Line, Lauren Daigle, on and on and on. Like it's just like this huge list of celebrities, right? But it was so funny because like you would go to like the charity website about the whole thing. We're raising all this money for St. Jude. But there was like rows of 3 on the website of all the different celebrities that you choose to donate with, right? So like 3 rows of 3 and then me. It was just like all these A-list celebrities, and then at the very bottom, Taylor Calmus, random guy.
Random guy.
Um, but like, so I worked my butt off trying to raise money for that thing. And but I'm like, it was like me against like, it's David versus 9 Goliaths, basically, right? But like at the end of the day, Chip's team raised most of the money. Like 90% of the money was raised by Chip Gaines and Magnolia, right? But then me and Lauren Daigle tied for second.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I raised like $24,000, and so did she. And then I beat like all of the rest of them combined because they just didn't, like they probably like J Lo probably didn't even know she was a part of it, right? Like her team said yes, they tweeted out the one tweet and that was it, and nobody cared. Where like I hustled or whatever. So I don't know. I think that was kind of like the thing though that I think got me kind of like in the Magnolia family. Cause then after that, like I met up with Chip and Joanna at St. Jude for like the big check handoff ceremony. And the first time I'd ever talked to Chip in person, me and Heidi were like at the gate of St. Jude, like going through security with our, getting our IDs out and stuff. And this van pulls up behind us and the door slides open and Chip hangs his head out the door and he goes, "Hey Taylor, don't screw this up."
And you hadn't met him before.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah, you probably knew you were going to hit it off at that point, right?
Yeah. So then after that, like he pulled me and Heidi into this little room, like, there's all this press and stuff going on, but he like pulled us back to this little room and he goes, "Has anybody told you yet?" I was like, "No, Chip, told me what?" He's like, "I want to put you on TV. I want to give you a TV show." And I was like, "Okay, let's talk." Cause I have one to pitch. And at that time we'd already pitched Magnolia Network and they said no. We'd already like went there and they said no. And then, but then like once Chip says yes, it's all yeses from there, right?
And
So
is this Dude Dad or is this Super Dad?
this is Super Dad, but
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, the Super Dad was never the name I chose, but it is what it is. So then, yeah, it became a thing, and it went into this huge process of like refining what the show was and everything, and it like almost didn't happen like 2 or 3 times, and it finally did happen. Um, then we shot it, and we shot the first season, and it was so like it was really hard. Oh my gosh. If you think your job is hard, go shoot a reality television show on a small budget and just tell me if that's hard. Um we did it. It was really hard. We got a second season. We adjusted some things to make it better. We learned a lot. Shot the second season, and then from there, like a lot of things happened with the network and like HBO merged with Discovery. Discovery bought HBO, and there's this big merger, and so then we just never got picked up for a third season after that. But I don't think it really had much to do with our show as much as it had to do with like what was happening with the network at the time. But then, like 2 years later, now it's been, we just won an award for it's a 10th annual American Reality Television's Award for Outstanding Kid Reality Series. So it's an award-winning show.
All right, look at that. So when I started this whole thing, Taylor, I should have said award-winning
Yes,
Dude Dad,
award-winning
Super
reality
Dad.
television series.
Holy catfish. We're with royalty today, folks. We're
Yes,
with
there you have it.
royalty. So let's talk about a day to day because it's not, you just said it, you've never worked harder than when you're doing a reality show. So what's a typical day like then?
Oh man, I don't know. Like my day to day with Dude Dad stuff is just kind of all over the place because there's different like aspects to what needs the whole thing. It's like we don't just make content. We also do brand deals. We also do merchandise and e-commerce, and so there's just a lot to balance and everything. But we do that to make sure that like that everybody can get paid every month, to kind of like never keep as many revenue streams as possible. So we're never relying off of one thing, especially when you're like talking about being reliant off of these platforms like, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok that we have no control over. They might just close their doors down one day, and then what are we going to do? So diversifying is huge. So day to day, I mean, my biggest responsibilities on the team are writing, and being in all the content and sort of steering the ship overall, right? And then I've sort of delegated a lot of the responsibilities to the other people on the team to sort of manage, so that so that they can, be more hands-on with certain things, and I can sort of, be a part of everything, but not be fully responsible for everything. So yeah.
How difficult, Taylor, was that to give up those responsibilities? Because earlier you said, "Hey, I was doing it all."
Not that hard because I brought in people that I really trust and respect. So honestly, as soon as I was able to like bring my buddy DJ on, was the first one, everything just got so much better because he's an amazing editor and an amazing storyteller, that when he came on and we started combining my ideas with his ideas, we just could go so much further than, like, and that's what's key about building a team out for this kind of a business, is you don't want people to just say yes to you. You want people that hold you accountable to make sure that the product is as good as it can possibly be.
That's awesome. And Duluth Pack has to thank you because you have been so kind to us over the years. We sent you some merch and you've worn it during your shows. And you know what? Our customers let us know that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Well,
you make a difference, and people will follow you, and even to the old moose head, right?
yeah, well, you just keep sending those sweaters.
There you go. They're pretty comfortable, aren't they?
They are very comfortable. I mean, yeah, that's why I wear them. They're comfortable. They look cool. They're, not too in your face, and they're, I don't know, and it's a good brand to support.
Well, thank you. We're proud of it. So, quick question before we go on to our last segment, and that is, how in the heck did you get to know Charlie and Miles?
Oh yeah. So I met Miles first, because he's from Fargo and my wife is from Fargo. So we'd go up there every once in a while. And it's funny, I saw his first video that went viral and I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Because it was right when I was kind of, getting my footing too. And I messaged him and he didn't respond. Right. And it's fine. It's right. He might not have seen it. I have no idea. I've never asked him. But then I made a video in Fargo called like Fargo's tourist guide or something like that. And it was like dead of winter. It was like literally there was a blizzard happening, and I went and filmed like this, like places you should see in Fargo. And like one of the big jokes was like, here's all the places you can go, but it's closed. But it's closed. And there's like, here's the little things you can see. Like we've got blowing snow, we've got piles of snow, we've got, yeah, drifts of snow. Like, but anyway, so I filmed that and that blew up and was like huge. And then all of a sudden he DMs me. And I was like, yeah, man, let's meet up sometime. But yeah, so after that, like him and I filmed a couple of videos together and became friends. And then him and Charlie had met up. And then I was like, hey, Miles, I want to meet Charlie because I hear Charlie is currently in LA as well, too. Because at the time, me and Charlie were both actually living in LA. I think he was doing like half and half or whatever. So then I met up with Charlie and filmed my first video with him. And then I got all of us together along with Penn Holderness to do Husbands of Target. And that was like, kind of I don't know, that one was just different. Like that just hit so hard, but it also came at a time when Facebook was really a place where you could go insanely viral. And they also allowed you to cross post videos. And so for people that don't know, cross posting a video is basically like, we could all, like, I uploaded the video and then gave the three of them all permission to cross post it. So it would go to all of our pages, but all the views would be calculated together. Right. So it gave us this massive distribution to be able to push it out to all four of our pages at the same time. And then on top of that, like just seeing us together got people excited, but then the content just resonated with so many people that it just, I think it hit 10 million views in the first day. It was crazy.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Do the three of you get together frequently?
It's really hard to get us all together anymore. It happened 2 years ago. We all got together in Fargo. I'd love for it to happen again. I've got so many kids now. It's hard for me to like get away, but yeah, we've always talked about it. And I see each one of them individually a lot more. But yeah, that would be it'd be cool because the reality is that like the three of us kind of like got into the game at the same time and went through a lot of those same life changes at the same time at like, you know, kind of like becoming internet famous, if you will. Going from having no money to like having some money, going from being a solo guy doing it all by himself to like having a team. And like, I think that's one thing that people don't realize is like just the amount of adaptation and change that we've all went through in the last 5 years to be where we are now from where we started. Like it's such a huge process that we've crammed into like a really short amount of time, to be able to like figure all that out and continue on and continue to build off this thing. Yeah, it's been pretty wild. So it's been really cool to like have those guys to like um you know talk to about things, and you know um and everyone's kind of like went a different way with their business in different ways, so you kind of take ideas and stuff from each other and advice, and yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And you know what? All three of you are just so approachable and such nice human beings that I applaud all of you because you're very famous, but yet you're very approachable and very humble. And I can tell you just I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Taylor, question for you. You're doing stand up. You said that you're going on tour. Where can people find dates so they can come and see you and have a good night out laughing until their stomach hurts?
Yes, go to dudedad.com and then click on the little link that says Dude Dad Live, and that'll take you to the tour dates. We got some more we need to add up there right now. Yeah, I don't think Minnesota's on the list yet, but it should be. There's no reason we shouldn't go to Minnesota. But the thing I keep reminding people, if we're not coming to your city, it's not that we don't want to, it's that we have made a lot of children, and some of them are in school and others are in diapers. So there's a lot going on. Because I also like Heidi comes with me on the road. Like I don't go without her. I think that was the decision I made a long time ago, that I was like, if I start doing live shows, Heidi's going to come with, because I don't want to do that to our marriage. I don't want to be out living rock star life and have her at home watching our 4 children. So it'll likely be like we go out for a weekend, with the baby, maybe the toddler, and the kids get a sleepover with their friends, and we go out for a weekend. We do 4 shows. We come home. We take 2 weeks off. We go out for another weekend. So that's kind of what the behind the scenes look like, is a lot of like family rearrangements to make it all work.
Taylor, we applaud you because you're grounded and you have family first, and you know what, you're famous, and you could be maybe even more famous if you decided to just be that rock star, but you've chosen that, wait a minute, family's first, my wife, my family, my kids. I applaud you, and I know we all applaud you for that, keeping grounded. So we're gonna, Taylor, switch here. We call this our pact question segment. So I'm just going to rapid fire a couple questions at you
Okay.
as we round it up here. Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Oh man. Let's say Frisco, Colorado.
Why?
It's just sweet. It's just a
Perfect.
cool, like it's a heightened version of Fort Collins.
Favorite movie?
Edward Scissorhands or Office Space.
Who inspires you?
Ooh. I mean, I think a lot of people inspire me. A lot of people. I don't know. My the people around me, my parents, my mom, um, my wife. I don't know, a lot of people. Anybody that's just out there doing it, like there's that feeling like when you see somebody out doing it, your first instinct is like, oh darn it, they're doing it and I'm not doing it. And then you go, no, that's awesome, good for them. Now I'm gonna go do it.
Perfect. And the last one, what is the best piece of life advice that you have ever received?
Don't take yourself serious, take what you do serious.
That is good advice.
Mm-hmm. Especially
And
when you dress up like your wife on the internet to make money.
hey, whatever it takes, right?
Yeah.
Taylor, we cannot thank you enough. I cannot believe that we're over an hour has gone by already. This has been so inspiring, so fun, especially for all of us and our listeners who watch you out there. And you know what? We all have stressful lives, but when we watch you, we're belly laughing, we're having fun. And you know what? It's a little escape for all of us. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the difficulties you go through in your career. And Taylor Calmus, the Dude Dad, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Tom.
And folks, until next time, like the Dude Dad would do, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors.